So let's look at this example. In this problem, I'm wanting to factor this quadratic expression, right? Now, up to this point, if I had a number, a leading coefficient other than 1, like I have this 3, in every problem we've done up to this point, I was able to factor it out of each term, right? But as you look at this problem, 3 goes into itself, but it does not go into 14 or 8. Okay, up to this point, you hadn't had a problem where the leading coefficient could not be factored out of the problem, have you? And so you need a strategy for factoring this type of problem, don't you? Okay, and so what we're going to use is something called factoring by grouping. But you need to recognize when you need to use factoring by grouping. So when you look and you see that this 3 will not factor out of all 3 terms, but I'm still asking you to factor it, then you know that you need to factor it how? By grouping. Okay, so here's how you do it. Now, the only thing I don't like about factoring by grouping is you kind of have to memorize what to do, and if you forget it, you're in trouble, right? So we're going to practice it enough that you won't forget it. Okay, step 1 is to multiply A times C. Now, what's A? 3. No, not X, just 3. And what's C? 8, right? Remember, A is the number in front of X squared, B is the number in front of X, and C is the number out here without a variable, right? And it's not necessarily in order. If I wrote these out of order, A is always going to be the number in front of the X squared, even if it was right here, right? And so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to multiply A times C, and what do you get? 24, right? And now what you're trying to do is you're trying to list the factors of 24 that add up to equal 14. You're trying to list your factors of 24 and pick out the ones that add up to equal 14. So my factors of 24 are 1 times 24, okay, 2 times 12, and there you go, you got it, right? Because 12 plus 2 is 14. And now we're going to rewrite this. Okay, so I'm going to say 3x squared, and 14x is the same thing as 12x plus 2x, isn't it? So I'm going to write it as plus 12x plus 2x plus 8. Now what you should notice is what I have written here in red is the same thing as what I have written here in black, isn't it? Because if I were to add 12x and 2x, would I get 14x? I would. And now what we're going to do is we're going to group this. The first 2 terms we're going to put in a parentheses. And the second 2 terms we're also going to put in a parentheses. And now we're going to factor each parentheses, right? So as I look at the first binomial, 3 goes into both, doesn't it? And then they both also have a what? An x. So I'm going to factor 3x out. 3x. Now when I factor 3x out of that, I'm going to divide this by 3x, and I'm going to divide this by 3x. And what do I get? X plus 4. Good. So I factored the first binomial, and 3x times x plus 4 is what I got. Now I'm going to factor the second binomial. What will factor out of the second binomial? 2 times what? Right, we're going to divide this by 2 and we get x, and we're going to divide the 8 by 2 and we get plus 4. Now, you're almost done. What you should recognize is this term has an x plus 4, and this term has an x plus 4. So what could I factor out of both terms? So I'm going to write x plus 4, right? And so what I'm essentially doing is I'm dividing this term by x plus 4, and I'm dividing this term by x plus 4, right? And so what happens is the x plus 4 cancels out here, leaving me what? 3x. And the x plus 4 cancels out here, leaving me what? Plus 2, and you're done. You just factored that by grouping. This is your answer that I'm circling in black. If you were to refoil this right here, in other words, if you were to multiply x times 3x and x times 2 and 4 times 3x and 4 times 2, you would get what you started with. You just factored this original problem right here by grouping. Let's remind you what you did. You multiplied A, which was 3, times C, which is 8, and you got what? Then you wrote your factors of 24 and found the one that added up to be 14, didn't you? And then instead of writing 14x, you wrote 12x plus 2x, because that is 14x, right? And you wrote a parentheses around the first two terms and a parentheses around the second two, right? And you factored out which each of them had in common right here and right there. And then you took this x plus 4 and factored out right there, leaving you 3x plus 2, right? And so this is the factored form answer.